Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. The internet is a wonderful thing. It's a tool in which has changed humanity, in many cases, for the better. Whether that be by connecting with long-lost friends and people all around the globe, as well as acquiring new skills and broadening your knowledge. When you think about it, no generation of humans in history has had the access to the sheer amount of information that we do today. In 2022, we can cross-reference what our governments and mainstream media networks tell us, and on many occasions, we may disbelieve the narrative setters. We should never take for granted the remarkable tool in which we have at our disposal. Though life is very often about trade-offs. Often good comes with bad, and that is the case with the internet. Despite the interpersonal connectivity, vast resources of useful information, as well as entertaining content, the internet also provides a glimpse into the brutality, depravity, and cruelty in which humanity is capable of. From random murders to combat footage from war zones, as well as murders and executions committed by organised crime groups. If you're willing to look for it, it's more than likely out there. Notably, most of the well-known graphic content in which we are aware of tends to come out of the Middle East or Mexico, with ISIS and various drug cartels being the main culprits. Though, the reality is, this is just a drop in the ocean when it comes to graphic content online. The truth is, as much, if not more content, actually comes out of South America and Africa, though, for the sake of today's video, we will concentrate on South America, but in particular, Brazil. These videos tend not to gain as much traction in comparison to cartel and ISIS videos, presumably due to the lack of backstory and little context surrounding them, which is the case for the clips covered on today's video. As always, I would recommend that you do not search for these clips. 2 of the 3 videos in particular are especially gruesome and are some of the worst of their kind that I have seen. But enough of the comfy introduction. Let's cut to the chase. Number 1. Boulder and Pickaxe Murder. This video is a short one, at 31 seconds long, though this doesn't make it any easier to watch. Despite the short runtime, this video caused a stir on social media when it first surfaced in 2020. It made the rounds and garnered much attention. In fact, it was originally claimed that the clip was from India, more than likely by design as some sort of propaganda campaign. In fact, bloggers claimed that the victim was murdered by Muslims as a part of love jihad. According to mainstream definition, love jihad is a conspiracy theory that purports that Muslim men target Hindu women for conversion to Islam by means such as seduction, feigning love, deception, kidnapping, and marriage as part of a broader demographic war by Muslims against India. Though, in reality, any amateur online sleuth can see that the clip is indeed from Brazil. Upon analysing the video, the female victim is wearing a Fortaleza football shirt, which is a team from Brazil. Upon further research, Fortaleza is indeed where the crime took place, and the victim was identified as 23-year-old Thalia Torres de Souza. The gruesome murder is said to be gang-related, though no information indicates which gang the killers were associated with, or why Thalia was targeted. For some context, Fortaleza is located in northeast Brazil, and the region in recent years has seen violence and murder rates spike. This is largely due to the organised criminal factions. Primarily, the area is run by gangs such as Guardias do Estado, aka the Guardians of the State, and also Familia do Norte, known in English as the Family of the North. As of right now, both gangs are at war to increase territory and influence in the area. As well as the local gangs, in recent years, Comando Vermelho, aka the Red Command, and Primeiro Comando da Capital, aka the First Command of the Capital, have also moved into the area, looking to expand their criminal empires. Needless to say, this has only resulted in further violence in Fortaleza and the surrounding areas. The current scenario is that of a free-for-all, with police and the judiciary system struggling to keep a lid on the violence. More than likely, one of the latter mentioned gangs is responsible for the heinous murder of Talia. But nevertheless, what happens in the actual video? As mentioned, the video itself is 31 seconds long. As you play the video, you see Talia laying on the ground with her hands and feet bound and with a gag in her mouth. Her head is laying on a fallen tree log. The fear on her face speaks 1,000 words as she prepares for her gruesome fate. After around 3 or 4 seconds, a man with a pickaxe swings it and strikes Talia in the head. She then lets out a brief groan. The man, whose face has been concealed, then strikes her again with the pickaxe. On the second strike, it looks like Talia's right eye bulges out of its socket. Somebody off camera then throws a huge boulder on her head, which in turn creates a continuous stream of blood coming from her nose. Somebody off camera then takes a long thick wooden stick and beats Talia's head with it. The killers make very little noise, though it does sound like a female can be heard talking in the background. The man with the pickaxe strikes her with it one last time, this time completely penetrating her skull, as people off camera throw 3 more large boulders on her head. As the video ends, the cameraman or woman takes a close-up shot of Talia. Her head is completely covered in blood, and her skull has lost its structure. You also see the hole in which the pickaxe left. It's a short video, but extremely gruesome. The sounds of the pickaxe and boulders smashing into Talia's skull are absolutely sickening. Very little else is known about the video. If anyone has any more information, please do let me know in the comments below. Number 2. Slow machete beheading. I'll say right now, this may honestly be the worst beheading video in which I have seen. Backstory behind the grisly clip is basically non-existent. The only speculation that exists is that the video is more than likely from Brazil and is a gangland style execution. I have tried to obtain clues from the video to potentially find more about the case, though I cannot find any articles from Brazil covering the savage murder. The video itself is 2 minutes and 51 seconds long, and it's an arduous watch. As you play the video, you see a man laying on his back on the ground. He's wearing a blue shirt, which is unbuttoned, and his hands are tied behind his back. The camera shot is looking over him, giving you essentially a bird's eye view of the victim. The man is ungagged, but he isn't making a sound. He realizes that his time is up, but shows very little fear and remains stoic. He is pulling a face that indicates he is bracing for what is about to happen to him. After 4 or 5 seconds, a man with a machete repeatedly strikes the victim's throat with it, though he is very inaccurate, sometimes hitting the victim's throat and other times hitting the victim's chest, leaving deep lacerations. Another man can be seen holding the victim's hair to stop him moving. Blood immediately begins to pour as the victim's chest and neck is continuously hacked away at by the machete-wielding psycho. After 10 or so strikes, the victim does let out a couple of grunts, but still doesn't scream. After several strikes, the man carrying the machete then places the blade in the wound on the victim's neck and starts to saw away, which cuts through more flesh and causes a huge flow of blood, presumably as the carotid artery has been severed. At this point, the victim can be heard gurgling on his own blood as he struggles for breath, as well as making hissing sounds which is coming out of a severed windpipe. As he chokes, blood gushes out of the victim's mouth. It appears that the victim is still fully conscious, as his eyes are darting around and he opens his mouth in pain. As the sawing continues, the gurgling stops, though the victim's eyes are still moving. The sawing sounds different after a period of time. You hear the grinding as the machete blade is cutting into the victim's spinal cord. The man who was holding the victim's hair then takes his machete and takes over, once again sawing at the victim's neck, breathing heavily as he does it. The other man then also starts slicing the victim's chest, removing a piece of flesh so that you can see some of the victim's sternum. He then cuts deeper into the chest, around the bone, exposing a part of the victim's lung. As this is happening, the other man is still slicing away at the victim's neck. As he cuts through the victim's spinal cord, he lets out a maniacal laugh. At the 2-minute and 30-second mark, the beheading is complete. The severed head is then held up to the camera as the men hold up gang signs. The head is then placed on the victim's stomach as the men throw up more gang signs, once again with one laughing. That is where the video ends. If at all possible, if anyone out there has any backstory behind this clip, please do let me know. This video is extremely brutal, and one of the worst beheading videos that I've covered for this channel. It's certainly not for the faint of heart. Number 3. Cruel and slow dismemberment. This entry ranks among some of the worst videos that I have watched while running this channel. Much like the previous case, very little is known surrounding the backstory. According to a subscriber who recommended the case, the video is definitely from Brazil, and judging by the accents, the gruesome murder more than likely takes place in or around Rio de Janeiro. It said that the killing was committed by an organised crime group, potentially by Comando Vermelho, though this has not been confirmed. The sick video is a longer one, at 3 minutes and 58 seconds long. I would ask you to trust me on this. Do not search for it. As the video begins, you see a heavy-set man laying on his back on the ground. His hands have been tied behind his back, and his feet appear to be bound. He is shirtless and has suffered some injuries before the recording took place. There is blood around the side of his head. He has almost certainly been beaten, but it also looks like one of his ears has been cut off, though it is hard to tell. Due to the camera angle, it's hard to say how many men surround the victim, but I'd estimate around 3 to 4. At around 10 seconds or so into the video, the victim is turned over onto his stomach so that he is laying face down. Once the victim is turned over onto his stomach, the brutality ensues. One of the men takes a large knife and starts slicing down in between the victim's shoulder blade to start dismembering the victim's right arm. The blade is super sharp and cuts through flesh like butter as he cuts around the joint. Blood streams down the victim's back as you hear faint groans. Some men can be heard talking lightly in the background. It's said that one of the men can be heard taunting the victim, telling him that his time has come. The man continues to slice around the top of the victim's right arm until it is nearly severed. The video then jump cuts, this time showing the victim on his back. They start slicing the flesh on the other side of his shoulder. He is being held down by some kind of pole, maybe a farming type tool, and he is screaming in pain at this point. The screams are harrowing, high-pitched, and almost childlike. It's heartbreaking to watch. After slicing all of the flesh around the victim's shoulder, the only thing holding his arm onto his body are the ligaments. The farming type tool is then used to sever the arm, and after 2 or 3 strikes, the arm is severed. According to my source, one of the men can be heard saying, "It's gone, your arm is gone." In shock, the victim repeats the phrase, "It's gone." At this point, the victim then stops screaming, although he is still conscious as you see his eyes dart around in fear and pure shock. They then do the same to his left arm, cutting in between the shoulder blade to sever it. A jump cut once again occurs, and all of the flesh around his shoulder has been cut, so once again, the farming tool is used to cut through the ligaments on the victim's left arm until it is completely severed. At this point, the victim isn't screaming, but is making a hissing, snoring type sound, which some call the death rattle. The man with the knife then plunges it into the victim's chest and slices down vertically, similar to the sponsored by Adidas video. As this happens, the victim opens his eyes wide. As the razor-sharp blade cuts down the victim's chest, his guts and lungs can be seen protruding from the cavity that has been cut open. The poor victim takes a few more breaths until you can audibly hear him stop breathing. The killers laugh as the man with the knife then slices chunks of flesh off the victim's torso. The video then ends as the knife-wielding killer is still slicing into the victim's torso. This video was extremely hard to watch, and is among some of the worst in which I've covered on this channel. The sad thing is, much like the previous case, no articles seem to be present online covering this despicable murder. If anyone out there has any idea or information which sheds some light on this case, please do let me know in the comments. I can't lie, making this video was a heavy one. Please do not search any of the videos mentioned for your own sake. Every case covered on today's video is rough and extremely graphic, so you have been warned. But anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it, if you can enjoy this sort of content. Thank you to those who recommended these cases to me, And if anyone else out there has any case recommendations, please feel free to let me know. You can follow me on Twitter, the link will be in the pinned comment, or alternatively, you can also drop me an email, which you can find on my channel. As always, thank you guys for the support, whether that be by liking or viewing the video, dropping me an email, etc., DMs. Thank you for expressing your support. It is much appreciated because ultimately, that is really what makes me continue this channel, or at least uploading as frequently as I do. So thank you guys so much for the support. These videos are not always easy to make. So yeah, the fact that you guys support me is much appreciated. And also, if you guys could check out my Twitch, I know it's a shameless plug. The link is in the pinned comment as well for my Twitch. If you guys could give me a follow, it would be much appreciated. The Twitch channel basically is just for me to let my hair down, be myself, have some fun. We don't really talk about crazy stuff on Twitch. We just have a laugh, you know? But anyway, as always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.